Hello, friends. Thanks for checking out the Autograph University Masterclass. I'm Matt Raymond. We have a great episode for you featuring the SI King, Scott Smith. How do I know it's a great episode? Well, I'm taping this after we already did the interview and it went awesome. So I know it's fantastic. Great tips, great stories, great insight from a guy that's been graphing for decades. So you're going to learn a lot. And he's a really cool guy, so we had a great discussion. So check it out. Up next on the Masterclass, the SI King, Scott Smith. Our guest today on the Autograph University Masterclass has a remarkable collection, 20,000 signed Sports Illustrateds, and I'm sure a collection of stories that is even more valuable. So we're going to get into that. But first, Scott Smith, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So you guys, the viewers here may know you as the SI King. You know, I know I became aware of you through some of the message boards and then checked out your website. You have a great website that acts as a database and also a storefront and goes into your story on how you got started. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, the evolution of your autograph career, and we can kind of start at the beginning?
Well, I guess just as a sports fan, my dad would bring me to Rangers and Knicks and, you know, local Jets and Giants games. And like any kid, I'd truck around either, you know, a couple of pucks or maybe my notebook and get paper signed. I've always been enamored with just, you know, getting autographs of my favorite athletes at the time. And back in 1973, I think my grandmother had given me a subscription to Sports Illustrated and just, you know, read them and saved them. Like any pack rat, I never threw anything away. So, you know, I've heard horror stories about baseball card collections being tossed out by mothers or grandmothers.
Sure, yeah.
My mother was pretty good with leaving my stuff alone. And,
awesome.
Just ended up one day taking it to the next level with figuring out that the Edmonton Oilers were locally playing the Devils, and dug up some Sports Illustrated in my closet and went out. My mom drove me over to the hotel, got Wayne Gretzky to sign a few, and
awesome.
Turns out that the New Jersey Generals were staying there at the same time, so I ran into Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie and went back the next day to get them, and it just never looked back from there.
Excellent. And the thing that stuck out to me when I read that story on your site is about how supportive your parents were, you know, of the hobby. I mean, you know, I think a lot of us who are collectors have a similar type experience as a kid where we go to the ballpark, but, you know, to see that at such a young age you are already kind of tapped into, okay, the hotel is going to be a source for me, all these other avenues away from the arena, and that's something that I learned much later, you know, when I moved to Boston after school. But it sounded like they were, you know, willing to, you know, truck you around and, you know, before you had a driver's license, you know, be kind of part of your team.
Yeah, they were very supportive. My parents got divorced when I was pretty young, so it was my mother that was trucking me all over the place whenever I asked, and couldn't have asked for a better mom. She's 85 now and still the greatest mother to me, but it wasn't hard for me just to ask, and she would take me around and, you know, either hang out in the parking lot and wait for me till the team left, or leave me for 2-3 hours, come back. I was about, you know, 16 or so, then 17 when I started driving myself around. It got a lot easier just to hit the local hotels. Yeah. And I wish I knew a lot more back then, probably the same way you did, of all the things that were available to me, like hotels or TV studios or things. You just, sure, you live and learn, and you get to know those things and the ins and outs of around and having fun doing it.
Yeah, I mean, if you could give, because we have a lot of young collectors, and I think even for people who are experienced but may not be kind of tapped into all these different in-person opportunities. I mean, kind of like, what are your top pieces of advice to someone, you know, who is trying to build those relationships locally with kind of, you know, the autograph community and trying to get some of that info, and, you know, kind of what are those words of wisdom after, you know, a couple decades doing this that you'd pass on to somebody?
It's you know, it's all about relationships with anything from business. I spent 20 years working in sales on Wall Street, restructuring corporate debt as an investment banker. It's all about building relationships, whether it's with local collectors or with doormen at hotels or with security at hotels, or it's a matter of just really killing it with being polite first, trying to ingratiate yourself as a nice person as opposed to someone that's a backstabber. But the collecting hobby is a little bit of both, where you don't necessarily want to be the biggest mouth on the block. If 100 people know and 100 people show up at the hotel, nobody's getting anything signed.
Sure.
So, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a secret society, but I've got a nice network of 3 or 4 people that I trust. They share information with me, I share with them. Way back when, it was telephone calls and driving around to various hotels. Now the internet and chat boards seem to open that up a lot easier.
Sure.
It's a lot easier, finding people all over the country as opposed to calling phone books of relatives back in the 80s. So it's just a matter of, dressing the part, being polite. It gets you a lot further than, kind of walking with your pants around your behind or your head on sideways. It's just a little bit easier to be polite.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. I mean, I think etiquette is super important, and I've written before just about the importance of that when interacting with, with an athlete or a celebrity or people around you. And it's really true. I mean, that's the advice I give someone when they're like, you know what, I don't have any contacts. And my advice is always, there's always autograph opportunities that you can find that are publicized. So you have your charity events or your public signings. You're going to end up seeing a lot of the similar faces. So, I think to your point, I mean, just go and be human and be friendly. And I think once people see that you are committed and you're not just, I get a lot of emails and I'm like, which hotel is this person at? I mean, that's the wrong way to go about it. I mean, like you wouldn't, you wouldn't walk up to, a girl you see for the first time and necessarily ask her out to dinner. I mean, like, let's, or ask her to marry you on, the first time. Like, you have to build a relationship and build some rapport with people. So I'm glad you said that. And actually, the last article I wrote was about, something as simple as, the way you dress, and it's not meaning, you have to wear a tux when you graph, although I've seen pictures of you wearing a tux when you graph, but it's just about looking the part and kind of blending in, to your point. You don't need to be, I think we've all been around kind of like that loudmouth on the corner, and that just doesn't help anybody.
Right.
But going back to, something that you said kind of started you off on this theme of Sports Illustrated was your grandmother getting you the subscription. Like, tell me how that evolved into, like, I think it's one thing to kind of keep them around and get them signed, but you created kind of a career in a persona and now a business around getting all of them signed. So talk about how that went from, like, okay, I have a stack of them, we should get that signed. I think we all kind of, collectors, we look around and we're like, oh, there's a magazine. Even though I have 10 other items signed, I need that one signed. We all kind of feel that pressure. But it obviously went far beyond that into something you're investing a lot of time and money into.
Right. It was just, again, whoever came in the mail from 73 moving forward to about 82 when I started. About 9 years into it, I had maybe 400 magazines sitting in the closet. And I think when they came out with the 25th anniversary publication, it showed all the covers from 1954 until whatever it was, 79 or 80. And then I saw all the Ted Williams, the Mickey Mantles, and all the crazy, no-name surfers or race car drivers or bullfighters from the 50s and 60s, and it just got me thinking that I should probably, try and do some homework and research and locate those people, and maybe it would be kind of cool to, get out of the way type of autographs or people that you've never heard of. And I guess the detective side of my brain took over, combing through libraries and phone books and calling relatives of people and scouring. I spent many trips going to New York City to go to foreign embassies in New York City, looking for Vasily Kuznetsov. you've never heard of the guy, but 1956 or 7, he was on the cover as a Russian athlete, and I ended up going to the embassy. They ended up taking a liking to my story, and I wanted to find guys like Vasily Alexiev and Kuznetsov and a guy named Igor Teravanishin, just great Russian athletes, the Babe Ruths of Russia. And they ended up sending letters for me, translated my letters into Russian, sent them to the Russian
amazing.
Olympic committees, and it was just, you know, like opening up a pack of cards and finding your favorite player. It's just, it was amazing to me to try and network with people all over the world to get an autograph. And I've never stopped. I still keep looking for people. Now with the internet, it's a lot easier, but there's not many that I haven't found, and there are plenty that have been deceased since I started. But it's just a lot of fun. It's like anyone's day on the golf course. They could have the greatest day playing golf, or they could probably hit a 150, but still have a great day.
Sure. Yeah.
I still get a thrill out of you know, chasing an autograph at a hotel, or putting a tuxedo on and going to a black vent and hanging out in the lobby, getting someone a sign. It's still fun for me.
That's awesome. And what a remarkable project. I mean, you hear people about putting card sets together and stuff, but this spans, you know, various sports, even, you know, going into non-sports with some of the models you're tracking down and things like that.
U.S. presidents have been a challenge, you know, meeting Reagan twice and Ford, and you know, you can only get them when they're out of office, but it's a real big thrill to meet a U.S. president. It's
sure.
Met many of those in the past. It's a lot of fun.
So there's basically a checklist that you are working off of, because it's all the back issues from Sports Illustrated. You have 95 or 96% of them. You also have whatever's coming out this week, you know, so it's a never-ending, you know, journey there. Talk to me though about, you know, are there certain autographs that stand out to you as meaning more? So, you know, something I struggle with is I've kind of gotten to a point in the addiction where there's probably a very small percentage of the folks I'm actually graphing that I really care about and mean a lot to me. And you know, the latest NBA rookie that I'm graphing, you know, doesn't necessarily, you know, it's not necessarily someone I grew up watching or has any sentimental value. Like, talk to me though about, you know, maybe there's a story that stands out of someone who, you know, either you admired or, you know, it was a particularly, you know, just difficult process to get someone that really stands out. So, you know, you know, goes beyond just me checking something else off, you know, the checklist.
Yeah, two stories. You know, probably two of the greatest athletes. One on one side of the coin, one on the other. One would be Muhammad Ali, just for the sheer amazement of meeting what I consider, you know, he's got the nickname the greatest. This guy is just probably the nicest athlete and one of the nicest human beings I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. I've met him maybe 30 or 40 times over the years, and I started this in '82. I don't believe the guy has ever turned me down. I think he told me once that it made him happy to sign autographs. It put him one step closer to God to make someone else happy. And, even the one time I met him where he invited me into his hotel room at the New York Sheraton. I was with a New York City cop. He told us to come upstairs. We sat down with him and his wife Lonnie. They took pictures of us together. I took out of a legal briefcase. I had about 55 magazines in it. He proceeded to sign them all for me. And every time I kind of leaned down to get a few more, he'd playfully flick me in the back of the ear and then turn his head as if, you know, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And he would just be
the same guy
character.
That you see, you know, it's, you know, it just seems like he was such a genuine person to, you know, everyone he met.
Just ridiculous. And I can't brag about what a great human being that guy is. On the other side, one of the more difficult guys who's actually probably as nice to me as Ali is Michael Jordan. He's on about 53 different Sports Illustrated covers. I have 36 of them signed.
Wow.
I met him first at Marriott's Essex House in 1982 when he was with UNC, and just a real pleasant kid, really nice kid. He was only on one cover at the time. He signed it, no problem. The coming years, his first year and second year as a pro, just couldn't have been any nicer. Would always take the time, but he wasn't Michael Jordan.
Sure, yeah.
The first couple of years, so he got to know me, I got to know him. After his first 7, 8 covers came out, maybe he was 20. I didn't have a problem getting them all signed. I used to have some security guards at different hotels that were friendly. I'd take care of them, maybe get something for them signed. In return, they'd give me some information when they were checking in or what floor they were on or things like that. And one day, we were at the Marriott in New York City. I caught him up on his floor, the 47th floor. I was the only one there. Rode the elevator down with him. He signed another 20, 25 things for me. Wow. Again, some of them were extras. At that time, you know, he's like, oh, yeah, you know, you've got a good amount now, and he knows about my collection. But then
that's what Charles Barkley said to me after one.
Who did?
That's what Charles Barkley said to me after one.
You know, Jordan at the time, you know, from that day forward, blew up, and he became the Michael Jordan that we know now, with upper deck contracts and millions of dollars a year's worth of getting paid to sign. And I got up to about 35, 36 of his covers signed. Spent a weekend in Florida when he was playing baseball. Stayed at the same La Quinta Inn with the team and hung out with what was then a AA ball player named Al Levine, who ended up pitching for the Angels in the World Series and getting on his cover. Made friends with a bunch of the guys on the team. And Jordan comes in one night with 2 women, puts his arm around us. He's a little hammered. Me and my buddy Sam from Philadelphia, who've been doing this for about 25 years together. He said, I know you got a great collection. I know you're a polite guy. I just think you have enough. And I explained to him, like, look, you're on 50 covers. I need one of each for my collection. This is what drives me. Imagine me telling him he's got enough money or he's got enough championships.
Yep,
I don't
fair
ever want
point.
to be I don't want to be a wise guy. I didn't throw that at him, but it's a collection that I'm trying to piece together like a giant puzzle. And imagine you're being told that you can't finish your puzzle. It's a little bit of you know, it chaps my behind a little bit to try and want to finish it. So that's my goal, is to try and finish it. And you know, nowadays I'll see him out in Lake Tahoe once a year, and I'll get a couple things done. I'll have some volunteers help me, or some other people I'll hand a couple $100 to if they help me and get them done. But I'm still trying to get those things done. Yeah.
So you talked about, and those are fantastic stories. You kind of map the evolution of Jordan a little bit. I mean, talk about just how the whole environment and the process has changed. I mean, I think a lot of us, you know, I remember when I was, you know, a kid, kind of like the big thing for my birthday, my dad would take me to a card show, and now I'm obviously kicking myself for spending $90 on a 1984 top set instead of going and getting Willie Mays for $35 or whatever it was. But in terms of like in person, I can only imagine just access and just the signing habits of players so radically different than today with, you know, commercialization of everything. So, you know, you're obviously still active in doing it today. Just, you know, talk about how it's, you know, how you've had to evolve your tactics and how you're still getting stuff done today with more competition, more skepticism from everyone involved, from security to, you know, the players themselves.
Yeah, back in the day, it was a lot less security, no worries about, you know, death threats and world terrorist acts, and the money was not involved back in 1982 to 1990. There were no computers, there was no, you know, there was advertising and maybe Sports Collectors Digest. That was the way the word got out. Now with eBay, with all the hobby boards, things have changed drastically. But back in the 80s, when the money, autographs weren't worth much money, you know, everyone collected their cards. I collected my magazines, but you'd have no problem throwing Jaromir Jagr and Martin Straka and Brian Trottier would take a ride in my car, And for that, they'd sign my things, and I'd drive them back from practice at the morning skate. Or I got my buddies that used to drive Wayne Gretzky and Paul Coffey, and they'd just take them to the arenas. There was no worry about security. There was no security whatsoever. They'd give them sticks or a jersey at the end of their at the end of the drive, just saying thank you, and they'd sign everything you put in front of them. But eBay changed the story where things were being sold. A forger opportunity, so it's watered down with a lot more product. I think as pioneers in the early '80s started up with autograph shows, they paid these players money, and they thought that everyone should be paid money. So now everyone puts a dollar sign on their signature. They don't want to give it away for free. Not everybody, many people still sign if you just be polite and ask them, but college kids still get a kick out of it. But with Johnny Manziel doing what he did, there's a little bit more scrutiny and a lot more compliance, a lot more security, and people being escorted to cars or escorted off campus. It's changed a lot. But what's helped me a lot, I've been in Sports Illustrated 3 times for my collection because I consider it a pretty historic collection from '54 to today.
Sure.
It helps me separate myself when I'm talking to these athletes. I can pull up I can pull out my articles, show them some photos of me in Sports Illustrated. Maybe they get a kick out of it, maybe they don't. But it separates me from everyone else looking to get a helmet or a ball or something else signed that might have more monetary value, but maybe they get a kick out of me because I've been in Sports Illustrated, and it's more of an honor for me to get it for my collection. So just little things like that will help me because I'm only getting the Sports Illustrateds done as opposed to balls, bats, jerseys, whatever else it is.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you certainly have credibility there, and you can put it right in front of them. So that said, you also have moved into having a retail piece of what you're doing as well. Was that, just talk to me about kind of like the decision to do that. Like I kind of suspect that you're out there and you are getting multiple pieces, and it kind of goes into supporting continuing to do this. I hear that a lot from people who are kind of a hybrid collector but also sell their extras. Like, just talk to me about kind of like your decision making process, because there's still amongst a lot of collectors there's let's be frank, like there's a negative perception of people who end up selling what they get and how that impacts people that are true collectors, and I'm sure you would identify with that label as well.
Yeah, I find myself on both sides where when I started, you said about going to baseball card shows and maybe spending X amount of dollars on cards, and you wish you could have had it back then.
Sure.
I wish I had the money that I do today that I didn't have 30 years ago. Everyone does. Everything grows, but I wanted to buy signed magazines of deceased athletes. I just didn't have the money to buy a Tony Lima or a Roberto Clemente at the time.
Sure.
$1,000 was a lot of money back in '82, '83, '84 for me. I spent so much time and so much money building my own collection. Every day going to New York City, there's a bridge toll, there's gas.
Sure.
My time alone is worth money. Everyone's time is worth money. Maybe not when you're in high school and college, but as you get a little older and have a family, time is valuable.
Sure.
I've spent a couple $100,000 over the years on bridge tolls and gas and hotels and travel and buying the magazines. Keep in mind, you're not successful every time, so you might spend 3-4 hours, waste $50 one day and get nothing. The next day maybe you get something, but it's an everyday process, or it was when I was in high school and college.
Yeah.
It seemed like I was out every single day when I didn't have much responsibility other than schoolwork. But you've spent a couple $100,000 over the years putting your own collection together. I felt the need at the time, if I were going to get extras, that they'd be used to fund my collection if I were to sell them. So, my personal collection of maybe 4,000 different Sports Illustrateds is now about 20,000. So I've got 4,000 in my collection, another 16,000 extras. They sit here and they're peddled, if it's an extra 10, 20 grand a year, It helps pay for my spring training trip, helps pay for a Lake Tahoe trip, it helps pay for my trips into New York City. I've got to pay plenty of money for autographs at shows still for guys that don't sign.
I want to go back, because you talked about family, but first I want to get like a couple technical questions out of the way. So, for those of us that are not specializing just in Sports Illustrated, but may be getting it in the mail and want that to be another piece in kind of the various items we get, is there any prepping involved for SIs, and has that kind of changed over the years with like, their printing or materials changing, and kind of like what are kind of your go-to markers or supplies that you're using on, because obviously there's various colors, so I'm sure you have a blue and a silver that you go to. I mean, kind of like talk to me about kind of your process. How do you prep and get ready?
Basically, blue is the standard. Blue Sharpie is my standard. It's the only thing I'll use on 99% of everything.
Okay.
I've seen many times where black Sharpies tend to get a yellowish haze around the actual signature over years if they're left out, and I can't afford to have the autographs get ruined.
Sure.
If there are dark covers, of course, I'll pull out a silver. I just hate them. They don't dry quick enough.
What do you use? Do you use Sharpie, or do you use like a Deco, or?
I'll use a Deco. Again, sometimes they explode.
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes Sharpies don't dry quick enough, or they dry out too quickly. I hate them, but they're a necessity once in a while. But
isn't it amazing they can't make a silver like the blue? You'd think it's a tint thing, but apparently it's
gotta be something with the ink that just kills
NASA
it.
needs to get involved, or maybe not NASA, but
occasionally there's a glossy cover that'll come out maybe 2 or 3 times a year, kind of like a glossy baseball card where you've got to prep it with either baby powder or rub it with a special Stadler eraser.
Yep.
Or kind of sounds kind of crazy, but pantyhose, a pair of old
oh wow, I haven't heard that one.
You can use to take off the sheen on a card or a Sports Illustrated glossy, and it'll cut through that one layer that just doesn't allow the ink to stick, and kind of makes it like bubble up a little bit like oil and water.
Sure, yeah.
But if you can baby powder it or get that top layer off, everything will come out fine in blue Sharpie.
Cool, good tips. So going back to, you had mentioned, now that you have family obligations. I mean, anyone who's followed Autograph University over the last year and a half knows that that's, something that I am, struggling with from a graphing perspective. It hasn't been hard for me to give up graphing time to spend time with my son. Like, that's been easy, but still, there was definitely a transition for me where, obsessing about who's around and, working in downtown Boston, there's a lot of activity there. So, after a year and a half, I've kind of got things where they need to be and still have some activity when he goes to bed, that I can head out. But, still that's a challenge. So, you have, 2 daughters, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about, just how you've had to balance the family life with, staying active, because you can't, you can't do this from the room that you're sitting in now, especially for, a lot of the new guys. You need to kind of be out there.
Yeah, no, correct. It is a juggling act sometimes. I've got a calendar that's filled with, all the teams that come in through New Jersey, New York City, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, soccer, hockey. But, 3 o'clock every day, I've got to pick up my kids at school. Well, that's not something that's going to change. So if there's a 5 o'clock TV show in New York City that there's a special guest that I need to get down there for, I've come to the conclusion it's got to get done another day, or maybe I've got to find out where they've checked into the hotel and get them at midnight the night before, so I can take care of the responsibility of either driving the kids to school or picking them up at 3 o'clock, depending upon. My wife's been pretty supportive over the years, what her work schedule is. If she's home, I can run out. If she's not home, I've got to stay home. So it's, weekends are freed up on football, Saturdays and Sundays. But unless if my daughter, one of them's got a softball game or the other one swims, or those take priority, and you learn to juggle. But you also learn to know that if you can't get them today, you'll get them tomorrow. The same way if they say no to you today, it's not that you're never going to have a chance to get them again. You'll get them another day. And
Sure.
When you work 9 to 5, you can't do it during the day. So maybe you go out and hit a 7 a.m. TV show, go to work, and then hit something at 8 o'clock at night if you can. It's just all, you set your priorities straight. And I've been fortunate enough to, when I worked in the city, I was able to do morning things and evening things, just not from 8 in the morning till maybe 7 at night when I was down on Wall Street or restructuring debt. So I pick and chose my time, but being in the city, it allowed me a lot of opportunity, but those days are over now, and I'm working from home, so it's a lot easier to juggle just the family when I make my own hours.
Sure.
Okay.
So you talked about your wife being supportive, which I think is, obviously fantastic. My own wife, I think, support might not be the word. She's just kind of accepted that this is part of our life. But I want to talk about kind of where your collection is, because that's a whole nother way that it impacts kind of daily life and living situations. So we moved last June, and she was psyched that we had to put everything in storage, because when the realtor came over, he goes, take down everything. No one wants to see your memorabilia collection when they walk around the house. And I've been able to kind of sneak some stuff back into our new place. But my collection is like teeny tiny compared to what you have. You have the 20,000 signed SIs. You probably have that much or more unsigned stuff, waiting to be signed. I mean, how do you manage it? Where is it?
Yeah, if I could take this camera and show you how I've kind of positioned it, then you'd get a better understanding. But first and foremost, I started this in '82, didn't get married till '96, so my wife about this obsession, if you will, way prior to even dating. So it's kind of like, the puppy that you bring into the relationship, you're going to live with it for life, and she's been very supportive, to say the least. But I've been lucky to have the support of my mom and dad early in life. They've always been pretty successful in life. I consider myself successful with business and relationships and family. I've been lucky to have a decent sized house here where of the 5 bedrooms, one of them is an extra one that I use for an office space. I've built some custom shelving over 2 of those walls to house some of the signed ones upstairs in my office, and then we have a crawl space off of my office that houses another maybe 15,000 autographed issues. So they're in my own little man cave, if you will, and it takes up 0% of the house. It's my wife's house. She decorates it. It's her house to live in, and none of my memorabilia is seen within the house. It's only within my office and the crawl space. The 20 or 30,000 unsigned magazines are stored, again, in some custom shelving I built in my garage. I've got one 15-foot wall and another 22-foot wall, wall-to-wall shelving that houses all of the unsigned magazines. So if I need to go run out and someone's coming to town tomorrow, or the Super Bowl's coming to town in 2 weeks.
Yeah, just being able to find stuff, you must just have an amazing, like catalog system to find everything.
Organizational skills are huge with the sheer volume that I have.
Sure.
The same way, a couple of my buddies of here that have been doing it longer than 30 years. My one buddy probably has over 200,000 signed cards. Oof. He's probably got another 100,000 signed 8x10s. He's been doing it, this guy brought Sandy Koufax in for his first show and paid him $4 a piece back in, 1980.
Yeah.
It's just, this guy's been collecting for a long time, and we're fortunate that we've done well in life with business and make good livings for ourselves. It's afforded us the space to house all of our stuff.
Yeah. So who is, taking a look at, the year ahead, who's on your priority list? I mean, who are you really targeting and excited about getting after doing this for, nearly 40 years. There are probably some back issues you still have to get, but, like we talked about, I mean, who knows who's going to be on the cover? I mean, there's going to be some Super Bowl covers coming out. So, like, what's coming up next for you?
It's ironic, and I hate to say it, where I don't get too excited about really anyone these days.
You already got them all, right?
The only ones that I still get pretty pumped up about are Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods. I've got about 95% of the history of Sports Illustrated autographed. If I were to get the other 15 or 16 Jordans, I've only got 2 out of 23 or 24 Tiger Woods. Those guys would probably pump me up to about 98% if I had those done. There really aren't that many that I need, except for the ones that come out on a weekly basis. The nice thing about going after college kids, they might put out 6 regional covers of college kids. Good example, college basketball. They put out 6 different covers with 2 players on each cover. So there's 12 kids that we needed.
So those are all part of the collection, all the regionals?
All the regionals. And the nice thing about the area that I live in, New York, New Jersey, is every year there are holiday tournaments when the basketball season starts. And of the, let's say the 10 teams that were featured on Sports Illustrated this year, 8 of them already passed through New York and New Jersey. So I get to go to see Michigan State, Michigan, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, Louisville. They all come through, and most of those kids are real nice, and they've all signed for me. The couple of kids that have not signed, Wiggins on Kansas, Randall on Kentucky, Wiggins, who's the kid on Duke?
Jabari Parker.
Jabari Parker, wouldn't even acknowledge you.
Yeah.
But,
I got a lot of those guys in high school out in Springfield, Mass, when they do the Hall of Fame tournament. So you got to go early and early. I mean, 5 years from now, we're going to be going to junior high tournaments, which is super creepy. But
as you get older, they get younger, it seems. But unfortunately, I can only go for them when they get on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Right. So while I know I have access to Jabril Peppers, one of the greatest high school football players in the land right now, going to Michigan next year, he's only 15 minutes away from me, but I just don't need his autograph. It's a shame that I can't get these guys, but I don't want to get mini helmets and jerseys and all those things. It would just be too much.
I was going to ask you that if there are other items that you get, if you have the opportunity to get somebody, like, do you have stuff? I assume earlier in your collecting career, it was more varied before you made the commitment to just do SI. But you kind of answered the question there. So right now it's SI only, and you'll pass up an opportunity if it's not someone you need on cover.
It used to be where when I got out of college, I went to a great school called Pratt Institute, went for graphics and advertising. Found that I really, after about a year or two, wouldn't be making the type of living I wanted to make for myself. So back in 1990, I ended up opening up a sports bar, to tell you the truth. And I was 25 years old. I knew all the local athletes. I had Giants and Devils and a bunch of the locals come in and make appearances for me. At the time, I had 50 or 60 game-used hockey sticks. I had about 80 or 90 game-used pair of NBA sneakers. I had jerseys. I had all these guys give me their equipment. They looked great in the bar, and for a while it was a lot of fun. After I sold the bar, that's when I got serious and went down to Wall Street. But the magazines took over, and when the Sports Illustrated took over, you just don't find that you have enough time to put in for helmets, jerseys, sticks, sneakers. There's just so much that you can have, and with the Sports Illustrated taking over at 40 or 50,000 magazines in a house, the other stuff kind of fell to the wayside. So I actually sold all the sticks and jerseys, and again, it all funded my Sports Illustrated collection.
Yeah, so last thing I want to ask you about is, you can go on to sikingcollection.com, and you're offering up some of your extras for sale, to fund kind of building out the rest of your collection, like you said. And there's a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, I encourage people to go there just to read your story and just take a look at it. I mean, it's really it's like a museum to just look at that stuff. It's amazing. But you're also doing private signings now, and actually giving people the opportunity, not just to get their SIs signed, but you're also taking other items as well. And that the whole kind of private signing process is interesting to me, and kind of how that comes together. You talked about relationships, and it's that's kind of job number one in getting those signings set up. But you don't have to get into contract details and stuff, but can you just, I think it's kind of behind the curtain thing to a lot of people. They see these posts, and I have a private signing with this person, and it's this amount, send it to me. And there's not that there's not transparency, but it's different than like a Steiner saying, okay, we're having an event and this person's coming out. Tell me a little bit about just kind of how these things come together, and when you started doing signings and bringing other collectors into just the opportunity to get other people's stuff signed.
Yeah, it's again from meeting all of these athletes. I started with not Michael Jordan, not Dan Marino, not Joe Montana. The big companies like Steiner and Upper Deck have their exclusives. I've partnered up with all of those companies. They know about my collection. They've helped me. They'll give me some wholesale pricing. I might be able to reach some people that they can't reach because of the Sports Illustrated nature, my 32-year reputation. People have entrusted me over the years to take their items on consignment if I'm going out and running around to, I take a trip to University of Alabama for 2 days and try and get, 4 or 5 guys to sign some stuff. They know that I'm there. They know that I'm traveling. They know I'm doing it in person. I'm not sending those away to someone and hoping that they're real.
Sure.
But it's the I don't want to call them B-list type, the guys that didn't make all the money. I'll try and get guys just out of college that might have, trying to find Chris Davis or work with Chris Davis right now, possibly pulled off the greatest play in college football history. He might not be the greatest pro prospect. He might not be Jadeveon Clowney or Johnny Manziel. Mm-hmm. Those guys are probably signed up with agents by now with big marketing, machines going for them. I'll try and steer away from that and maybe partner up with them down the road. I'll try and find these other guys that are a little lesser than the top tier and work those angles where I know there are, 400 or 500 people in my own database and lots of followers that just collect specific Sports Illustrateds that entrust me. So it's more of a reputation thing where I know I can talk, I know I can meet these people, I know I'm responsible, I know I'm organized. I'll try and bring that to the table when contact athletes, offer them to get paid for really not much effort of their time.
Yeah.
I'll do the traveling, and I put cash in their pocket, and they appreciate it as much as I do. But those are basically the guys that I'll go after that are on Sports Illustrated that I need for myself, and I'll try and basically get my stuff signed for free by offering it out at a chop for myself.
Mm-hmm.
If I make $10 an autograph and I get 50 things in, make $500, 300 goes towards travel, and I keep 200 of it. It's just it helps pay for my own autographs, and it helps again with my own collection.
Sure. So tell the people watching and listening how they can connect with you and find out more about the signings or learn more about your collection. What are the best ways to get in touch?
Easiest way is through my website. I have a collector friend of mine for years, actually handles a lot of website, Dallas Cowboys for Artie Lang, for Moose, for Siragusa. Mm-hmm. He built me an amazing website. As a former artist back in the early 80s, this guy is a genius. You go to sikingcollection.com. All of my stories are on there, thousands of photographs, proof. Builds my reputation. I've got a YouTube channel that shows me in action running around. I've got a Facebook page. I've got a Twitter page. All those are easy hookups. Easiest thing to do is basically, email me at my, go to my website, find my email address, email me. I can add you to my distribution list, and I'll let you know everything that I do, from consignment trips to private signings to partnering up with bigger companies that might offer me better pricing that I can possibly pass on to you. Easiest way is to go to the website and sign up for my newsletters and follow me on Facebook and so.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I just signed up, I think a week or two ago. And you're very consistent. You have a lot going on. I encourage everyone to, at the very least, go to the website, check it out. I was on your YouTube channel yesterday, taking a look at all the different clips. It's cool just to watch. I mean, some of them, just to see kind of what your approach is like. Like, I think people can learn a lot. It's not just you showing like, hey, this is who I got. I think some of the longer clips, you kind of show something like your strategy. Those are the ones that are really cool to me. So cool. This has been awesome to talk to you, and just hear your story and learn some tips from someone who is really an expert, and that's what we want to do here with the master class. So thank you. Best luck in 2014, and getting as close as possible to finishing that up. I know a lot of people are rooting for you to do that, and it's fun to watch you build the collection. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Great to talk to you. I appreciate your interest.
Well, that's our show. Big thanks to Scott Smith, the SI King, for coming on and sharing his stories and his tips. I love talking to people who are passionate about the hobby, and just picking their brains. So if you enjoyed it, head over to sikingcollection.com. Let them know that you saw him on the masterclass. Give him some props. Check out the website. So much cool stuff. Like I said, it's like a museum on there. So just go check it out. He's got info on his private signings, links to his Twitter feed and YouTube. So go interact, find out where he's hanging out. But thank you so much for watching. Get in touch with me at autographu.com. Head on over there for autograph tips and guides and all the stuff that is over at Autograph University. Hit me up on Twitter at Matt Raymond, and head on over to Facebook. We got a cool group over there, facebook.com/autographu. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. You'll know everything that's happening over at Autograph U. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. See you soon.